It's about bringing the knowledge, the learnings, the pilots, the experiences of all kinds of stakeholders. Try to also build this engagement with the Bangalore Municipal Corporation, right? BBMP, in terms of what they are actually doing. Because at the end of the day, it's the initiative which is being led by BBMP and then supported by 30, 40 organizations that are working together to really come together. So this will help us understand why do we really see some of these issues of congestion that we keep talking all the time about Bangalore. It's happening this year, February 20, 21, 22, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the Glass House, which is the headquarters of BBMP.
Hello, I'm Sathya Sankaran. Welcome to the OoruLabs podcast. Today we are going to be speaking with Pawan Munukutla of WRI about the Namma Raste event that is being conducted here in Bengaluru, why it is important and what's happening there. Let's hear more from him. Pawan, welcome to the show once again.
Thank you, Satya. It's always great to be back to talk about things with you.
This time, I think let us talk about the Namaraste event which is coming up. Just explain briefly what is this Namaraste? How did it come about? What are you trying to do?
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you so much. So this is the second edition of Namaraste, which is bringing together, I would say, all communities working for betterment of Bangalore in the mobility space in a way, because Namaraste itself is indicative of how this conversation is about. And this is the second edition. In fact, we did the first edition in December 2023. And then we said, okay, this is a good timing for the second edition now. And the thinking behind this is like, let's understand like what is happening about improving mobility on our streets.
Hmm.
And it's about bringing the knowledge, the learnings, the pilots, the experiences of all kinds of stakeholders, right? Like typically, it's no need, someone doesn't need to be an expert to really think about how streets have to be designed. I mean, everyone knows that we need to make streets safer for our children, for our senior citizens, for vulnerable population, for everyone, basically. And this is the thinking that let's bring, every pocket, everyone is trying to do something or the other at their local level, at the street level, at a city scale. And let's understand how things are moving. And it's also an opportunity to work and try to also build this engagement with the Bangalore Municipal Corporation, right? BBMP, in terms of what they are actually doing. Because at the end of the day, it's the initiative which is being led by BBMP and then supported by 30, 40 organizations that are working together to really come together. It's one way to really, I would say, bring accountability in a way in the city on what things are happening and how do citizens participate in something like this.
Basically, an event. It's like a showcase for those who haven't attended last time and haven't heard it before. What does it look like? When does it happen? What are the dates?
Yeah, no, thank you, Satya, for alluding to that. So it's happening this year, February 20, 21, 22, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the Glass House, which is the headquarters of BBMP. And basically, it will actually be a display of interactive maps
Hmm.
of how Bangalore moves. What's happening, say, in HSR, what's happening in Sanjay Nagar, what's happening in Konan Kunte. Different parts of that city, everyone is simply thinking through, right? Either people are piloting some solutions, people are using technology to understand or satellite imagery. So basically, it will display all kinds of maps. It will be an exhibition, an interactive session. There'll be panel discussions. There'll be participation with various, I would say, stakeholders, citizens groups across the city, and will be displayed. So this will help us understand why do we really see some of these issues of congestion that we keep talking all the time about Bangalore. It will help us understand what kind of road infrastructure we have, what kind of public transport network we have. So for me, it is, I would say, a big exhibition with all kinds of visual exhibition in a way for
Hmm.
us to really understand how the city moves and how everyone is contributing towards making this city better.
So, what kind of organizations participate? Why do they come here? And who is the audience we are looking at in Namaraste? What kind of people should be coming here?
I would say it's open to all. It should be open to youth, to children, to residents who are frustrated from time to time and expressing that on social media. It's an opportunity for them to come and learn and also to contribute. But who are coming together primarily, I would say, Satya, that we're bringing together many of the knowledge partners, I would say civil society organizations, resident welfare associations, tech companies, organizations that actually work in this space to have them showcase what they think and what they have been working in the mobility space. And as I mentioned earlier, of course, it will be anchored under BBMP's leadership, where they will also talk about what they are doing as municipal corporation in terms of the street infrastructure itself across the city. Primarily, I would say also an opportunity for us to really understand how people who don't have voices can actually come and express themselves through this exhibition.
What has happened in the past, Pawan, on these Namarastes? What kind of voice was exhibited? What did people take away from that?
When the first edition happened, it was for the first time that we were looking like at immense data and the insights that's available in the city, right? Like a lot of times we have this dialogue based upon the perception of how I imagine I move in Bangalore and how I feel about it. But for the first time, it was very interesting to see what's the demand of travel within the city. What kind of supply does the city exist, and how should we actually look at what kind of indicators? I'm getting a little technical, but everyone expressing like we say that, oh, there's congestion on this side, but how is the road network in that area? What is its density? Why is Jayanagar doing really better, but Whitefield is always um, challenging? But of course, with metro it has got better. So how do you then start thinking about these things is very interesting to me. And in the first edition, I think the call for action was, how do you create more walkable streets in Bengaluru? How do you create road network which is more resilient, right? You see, every time rains and then we say, oh, you have only potholes left. So I think there was this very um, concentrated effort to really talk about, can we really start talking about creating infrastructure for actually people who walk. And that sometimes we forget that almost 30 to 40% in any city in India that matter. And in Bangalore, I would can easily say at least close to 30-35%, one third of the city walks. But we know the status of infrastructure. And through this last year, actually, this whole thinking that BBMP has adopted and is now in implementation stage, which you'll be happy to hear. Suraksha 75 junction improvement and also the footpaths and the improvement initiative actually started. I'm so glad to see that. In fact, there were some checks, audits last week, and in terms of the demonstration of understanding how the projects are ongoing right now. And very interesting to see that actually we are talking about implementation finally within a year, which is very unusual. So I see this as an opportunity. In the first edition, this is what happened. The focus was more about creating resilient infrastructure and creating infrastructure for people to walk in the city.
So after that, quite a few things have happened. Like you said, Suraksha 75 has moved on, and some other people have done some things. So the people who have displayed, how do they feel about it, and what do they are? How many more people are coming back this year? What are has it increased? Has it decreased? What are they showcasing?
Yeah, so I think one, I would say it's very exciting and interesting, but at the same time, I don't want to sugarcoat and say that everything is really good, because I think people would also frustrated that things are not happening at the pace that you want. But I would say this time it's much more bigger. We are seeing almost close to more than, I think, 50 organizations coming together to really showcase what they've been doing. And I would really divide this into more at neighborhood level in terms
Hmm.
of implements what's happening. And then there are certain conversations, say at a regional level or at a city scale itself, that will be displayed. Lot of it is actually at neighborhood level, Satya, and I feel it's very good because that shows how active our citizens are in Bengaluru, and it becomes kind of a role model for other cities also. So it's good to see communities and citizens being part of the solution And co-working with what we say, right, 74th Amendment all the time. Like, how do you make that work at the tier three level of the government, which is here the municipal corporation, to really make it happen?
What has been the response from BBMP? Do they think that these kind of things are useful? Do they get motivated by it, or are they saying that we like some things and we'd like to support? How does that work?
No, they have been very, very excited about this. In fact, BBMP has been forthcoming, and they were actually very interested in asking when will we do the Namaraste 2 or the second edition. And there's full support from BBMP, I would say. And of course, they're creating, as you know, there was a committee formed to create this SOP guidelines, which they want to release that as part of this initiative right now. And I would say that the conversation has expanded beyond just streets. We are talking about the different elements, right? In terms of public transport usage, in terms of how is tech influencing, in terms of also ability to see how do you leverage the strengths within the city. I think the conversation has to really move to that, and the hope with this is that the inputs that will come through this edition, we are able to create a wider agenda uh, for investment in sustainable choices.
Namaraste has been always about streets, which is the street as the public space that we look at. And today, if you look at the state government and the city government's moves, they're saying we are adding capacity, we're going to put tunnels, we're going to put 16 flyovers across. Some are 32-kilometer long. Metro is going to have more roads. So capacity increase is already planned and happening, and most people seem to be excited about it. What is the role of a local community in all of this? What are they expected to know or think about when they come to Namaste? What do they get differently from all of the things that are already happening?
So I think most of us understand the supply aspect of it, right? Satya, we understand, okay, what's happening as capacity building, whether it's a street network, as you mentioned, or whether it is public transport augmentation. I think two, three things. One is what would people expect, and what are these other partner organizations trying to do? One is help understand what is demand at the local level. I think we don't understand enough about demand, and in terms of um, user choices and preference to move around in a city, right? I want to go for groceries, I may be walking. I want to go a little longer for shopping, there is a different mode I would prefer. I'm going to work, there is a different choice of mode I'm doing. So I think this science is totally missing in our whole thinking, because we feel, okay, yes, there is a whole private vehicle centric increase in the travel pattern. I would say that let's look at it from how the user is doing, because as a user for certain trips, I'm going to use private vehicle, but as a user again, I'm going to use public transport for certain choices. So understanding this demand behavior and what we call, like, what are the trip choices in a day, and the modes and the routes that people will use, this information is totally lacking. And that's why if you see a lot of our studies that we do also, even in Bengaluru, are based upon data which is 10 years old, models which are like very old, and it really doesn't then help us arrive at anything concrete, because if pouring investment, so much huge investments that every year every city has to do, right, as a corporation or as a state level, to make cities infrastructure better, the difficulty is the lack of data, the lack of understanding. And our hope is this is what local communities and organizations will bring, saying that this is the way people move, because a lot of them are doing their own service, a lot of them are doing their own perceptions. There are certain qualitative analysis that is happening, and that is important part of the discourse that which should not be missed. And this is an opportunity for BBMP and even elected officials to understand what is the requirement at say in their constituencies, in their ward level. So that's what will happen. And for people visiting, I think what is it for them? I think what is it for them would be they would be actually rather surprised to see how Bangalore moves, and what is a choice for me is could actually be in direct conflict and tension with someone else. we really need to recognize this, right? Remember this one incident when there was this whole traffic jam for 5.5 hours. I think it was a
Mm,
Wednesday after
mm.
holiday or before holiday, and everyone was complaining. But we don't understand that many of us are actually part of the problem also, because we are bringing our vehicles on road, and then we are saying that augment the supply. Yes, the supply will get augmented, but what are those behavioral nudges and changes as an individual I can do? I also need to be respectful that there are other users from different socio-economic backgrounds who may not have other choices, and for them, probably walking, using public transport, shared mobility are the choices. How do we create that respectful space and ensure that the decision making is not just in favor of you who are able to make too much noise?
So you feel that understanding demand side, coming to Namaraste, figuring out what's going on, understanding what is how people are moving and how they can personalize their choices and make certain decisions there would be a good outcome of that, because supply side anyway people are making some choices which may not be in alignment with this. So broadly, where do you see this going after this Namaraste second event? What do you think will happen? Let's say a lot of people come in, show interest. What do you vision as the next steps?
I think multiple things. I feel, and I'm going to take segment by segment. I would feel that media would be more informed in writing rather than just talking about the problem, and they can
Mm,
actually help understand why certain things happen and how certain choices should be preferred and should be encouraged. I think that's one way to do. For schools and youth, I would say that it's a great exposure to understand. Mobility is always fascinating. How do you then encourage like cycling, which actually something in Bangalore should be so prevalent? It is there, but we are not. You and I cycled when we were young and going to school. And now we see that I can't send even my son, even if the school is 2 kilometers further away, right? How do you then enable even school students and youth to actually ask for choices that are more sustainable? I think we need to bring that culture back. And I would say for decision makers, it's very obvious that they are able to connect to their audience and understand that, where are the service gaps? How do I really improve access to the citizens for, jobs, to healthcare, to education, to recreation? Imagine, see, isn't in a way that we are forcing two things, right, Satya, when you ask this question comes to me. One is for people who don't have choices, we're forcing that you just find things within 1-2 kilometers where you're able to walk. So how do you actually expand choices for them, opportunities for them? That's one way to really do, right? And the other is, which we haven't talked much in any of our conversation, I would say bringing the lens of gender and
mm,
mobility of care, because lot of the mobility interesting research shows that the number of work trips is equal to number of trips that people especially women making for care, which is like taking care of
mm, mm.
kids, of families, senior citizens, and they are not at all accounted, and we don't even care for them in our whole transport planning. So how do you these things have to be brought back, and many of them are not even aware, and this was like you are completely ignoring sections of society from this mobility conversation, and the hope is, yes, let's make them also part of this. And for me, a big success would be is one at awareness level, second is building capacities of various stakeholders, but more for citizens to be equipped with right choices, so that we are not saying, oh, I need to uh, let's not get be thinking only about us saying that we need a specific choice because we want it, right? How do we make a choice which is actually workable for everyone in this city? I think that has to be something, and if that call for action can come out, then nothing like that.
We have to think how our choices are affecting everybody else. We move from the I to the we of the problems. So yeah, this is a good call out. It's happening on February 20, 21, 22 at the Glass House in the BBMP head office. This is not the Lalbagh Glass House for those who are listening. It's the Glass House in the BBMP head office. It's going to be an exhibition of many people, many partners who are displaying their understanding and work that they have done. And there's a huge focus on what you can learn. There are going to be many different types of stakeholders. So, yeah, do come.
No, Satya, looking forward to having you. You yourself have
Of
been
course, I'm
a
there.
lot of cycling and walking. You've been our mayor also for the whole bicycle initiative. So I hope this dream also gets realized. I want to have a day where we are able to cycle and walk so comfortably in Bengaluru.
Sure, but there is more. There are more things about how we look at streets. There is data around the public transportation. I think there's a large amount of things that are available that I think citizens need to think about expanding their viewpoint on traffic beyond where you're getting stuck. That's what Pawan is getting at. Is this will help you start thinking bigger. You'll start becoming a bigger person when you start looking at all this data and say, I've not been thinking right. I mean, most of us know some answers, but this is not about providing answers. This is about discovering possibilities and how you, as an individual, play in the whole city and collectively what we are having as a problem in the city. Thanks a lot, Pawan. Looking forward to lots of people. Of course, I'll be there. Of course, my team is there. Of course, there are a lot of others being there who are working in this city. Namaraste 1.0 was great. I don't think you should call it 1.0, 2.0. Those look like versions. Namaraste second edition is back on February 2021-22. Looking forward to a lot of people. It's open through the day, right? Or 9 to
It
5
is.
something?
Yeah, yeah. So it will be 9 to 5, 9 to 6 kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. So it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we can expect a lot of people. There are people from school, government, everybody else coming on. Looking forward to seeing all of you there. Thanks, Pawan, for coming on the show and explaining Namaste. I am excited. Hope everybody else is.
Thank you, Satya.